All right, lesson 62. So we were doing square roots and then higher order roots like cube roots and fourth roots. And then we'll evaluate plus or minus signs. Okay, so definition of square root. If x is greater than 0, we're doing all positives for now under the square root, then the square root of x, if you square that, is equal to x. All right, so these are inverse operations of each other, the square root and the square. So the square undoes the square root, and you just get x. All right, so I have the square root of 2 times the square root of 2. We can multiply as long as both of them are inside of the square root, all right? And that would be the square root of 4. And the square root of 4 is 2. All right, so if you multiply a radical by itself, you get what's underneath the radical, all right? Because 4 squared is 2, or 4 is 2 squared, all right? Another way to look at this, here I have a times a. They're both underneath the radical, so that'd be the square root of a squared, and the square root undoes the square. So this is just a, right? This and this, inverse operations, we just have a. All right, and right here I have the square root of x minus 1 times the square root of x minus 1. Well, if I multiply these together, it's the same thing as writing it like this, right? Without multiplying it all out, because I'm going to take the square root anyways, right? So x minus 1 times x minus 1 is just x minus 1 squared. And then I'm going to square root that lovely thing, which undoes the square. And we just get x minus 1. Okay? Yes? No, you don't need to show work. You can just put the answer on these if you would like. All right? All right, we are not going to do these like this. So if the book says use a calculator, just don't. All right? We are actually going to figure out what two whole numbers this radical is in between. By the way, radical means square root. Okay? So this square root is in between. Well, how am I going to know that? We're going to write them all out. Neat. Okay. So we're going to do all of the perfect squares through 20. And yeah, you should write this down even though you know most of these. Okay? Just write them down. It makes it much easier when you're doing your homework, okay? So 1 squared is 1. So 1's a perfect square number. What's the square root of 1? Okay, and then 2 squared is 4, which means 4 is this perfect square number. What is the square root of 4? 2. 3 squared is 9. What's the square root of 9? 3. So these numbers on the right are perfect square numbers. What's 4 squared? 16. What's 5 squared? 25. What's 6 squared? Okay, what's 7 squared? Great. What's 8 squared? I know, toughie. What's 9 squared? 81. What's 10 squared? All right. What's 11 squared? Great job. What's 12 squared? Great job. What's 13 squared? Look at you guys. What's 14 squared? Oh, good job. What's 15 squared? Great job. 16 squared? Way to go. Did your parents make you memorize this? What's 17 squared? Wait, yeah, good job. All right, 18 squared? What? Okay, good job. What's 19 squared? No one knows this one. Wow. Okay, 20 squared you guys should all know. That would be 400. All right, thanks guys for helping us out. Okay, so those are all the perfect square numbers through 20. So if I was like, hey, what's the square root of 196? You'd be like, oh, that's 14. All right, these are all perfect square numbers, which means I can take the square root of them and we get a lovely, nice number. Square root of 36 is 6. Okay? I know some of you guys are still writing. I'll give you a second. All right, so we want to solve this problem without a calculator. The square root of 17 is really close to what perfect square number? The square root of 16 is what I was looking for, actually. But I get where you guys were going with that, okay? The square root of 16 is 4. So 16 is a perfect square number, right? And so 16 is close to this. So if I were to take the square root, it would be a little more than 4, all right? Because the square root of 16 is a little less. So my number, the square root of 17, has to be in between 4 and 5. Because the square root of 16 is 4, and the square root of 25 is 5, and 17 is in between 16 and 25, okay? So use your chart on these if you need it, or think through, all right, what's 3 squared, what's 4 squared, what's 5 squared, what's 6 squared, until you get close to that number, okay? All right, let's try another one. Without using a calculator, determine between what two consecutive integers the square root of 27 lies. So again, I should have said this, you guys, but we always use less than signs like this to say that this is in between these two numbers, okay? Bigger than 4, less than 5. So we'll always be less than signs. All right, so 27 is really close to what perfect square number? 25. Agreed. 25 is a good one. All right, and the square root of 25 is 5. But it's a little bigger than that, square root of 25. So it has to be in between 5 and 6, square root of 36. So there we go, 5 and 6, okay? All right, what about like cube roots and fourth roots? So if I cube a cube root, I just get x. So the cube root and the cube are inverse operations, just like the fourth root to the fourth power, those would cancel each other out. All right, so you're going to have problems like this. What is the cube root of 8? And so you probably already know, I know, but 8's 4 times 2, and 4 is 2 times 2. So you need something to the third power. You do not have to write this out, okay? But I'm going to show you that 8 is 2 cubed, right? So if I take the cube root of 2 cubed, I just get 2. You do not have to show this middle step, right? You just put 2, all right? Now I have the fourth root of 81. If you don't know, break down 81 into prime numbers, all right? 9 times 9. And then we can break that down to 3 times 3 for each of those. So again, we have to have 4 of these to get a fourth root. So what's the fourth root of 81, everyone? 3. It is 3, okay? Now, can we take the cube root of a negative number? And the answer is yes. It's been a while since we've done one of these. If you have an odd, this is called index, okay? So if you have a third root or a fifth root or a seventh root or a ninth root, any odd number, you can take that root. Why? Why, you say? Because 8 is negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2. What is a negative times a negative times a negative? A negative. So this is okay. I can take the cube root of a negative number and I can get then negative 2. All right, there were 3 of those. So if you do take the cube root of a negative, you get a negative, okay? Now for this one, what is negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3? It's positive 81. Is there any way to have the same number repeated 4 times and get negative 81? No. You can never, ever, ever do an even index when there is a negative under the house. There's no way to get that. Yes, it is I. We will get to that in Algebra 2. For now, just nope, all right? No can do. Yeah, not possible. They probably won't give you one, I don't think. All right. So let's evaluate the cube root of negative 27. So you're like, all right, that's 9 times 3. And then this would be 3 times 3. So we'd get 3, 3, 3. And is there any way to multiply to get negative 27? Yeah, all those are negative. You still get negative 27. So the cube root of negative 27 is negative 3. And then they'll give you some of these nice ones. What's the square root of 81? 9. And what is the square root of 144? Wow. By the way, once you take the square root, don't write a radical. Some people do that. It's weird, okay? Once you take the square root, no more rooty thing, no checky box, okay? All right, and then 9 minus 12 is negative 3, and you're done. All right, this is the last new thing. They just kind of throw one of these in here. Just see if you can do it. It's just got the plus minus, okay? So this is like, it's just got plus minus, which you've maybe never seen before. I don't know. I can't remember if this was in pre. All right, what is negative 1 squared when there's no parentheses like this? Good. It's just negative 1. Only the 1 squares, not the negative. How about negative 2 squared when it's inside the parentheses? What is this equal to? positive 4. And then I have this like plus or minus 9. So we're going to continue adding these first. So I have negative 1 plus 4 is 3. And then I have plus or minus 9. This just means you're going to get 2 answers. What is 3 plus 9? What is 3 minus 9? All right, some people like to write it out. I don't know if you need to write it out. It's 3 plus 9, and it means 3 minus 9. Both of those, all right? 2 solutions there, 12 and negative 6. Add first, then subtract. All right, let's try some whiteboards.